students. Today we will be studying the story that is the triumph of surgery. This story is penned by the British writer and veterinary surgeon James Herriot, who was born in 1916, died in 1995. In this particular story, we find that protagonist of the story is a dog named Tricky. It is a pet owned by Mrs. Pumphrey, the owner, the lady who is very fond of her dog. She is so caring for the dog that she overfeeds it. It was fed excessively by this owner, Mrs. Pumphrey. Mrs. Pumphrey serves everything, cakes, sweets, to this very weird dog, Tricky. One day, when Mrs. Pumphrey was out for a walk with Tricky, narrator, who is Mr. Herriot, noticed the dog, that the dog was overfed. Dog looked like bloated sauces. This adjective has been used by the narrator. Narrator used this adjective because it was overfed, it was looking very fat, that's why. So now he predicted that dog will be unwell soon, and his prediction became authentic. It became a kind of truth, and it became unwell. It got unwell and it stopped anything. It stopped eating anything. When it stopped eating anything, naturally it will be unwell. So Mrs. Pumphrey became extremely worried, and she made a call to the narrator, who is a veterinary surgeon also, animals doctor. When call was made to Mr. Herriot thought that I was right when I declared it unhealthy. After that, it was decided that the Tricky will be hospitalized. When Tricky was going to send for the hospital, surgery center of Mr. Herriot, there were tears in every one's eyes, servants, maid, everyone, in the eye of Mrs. Pumphrey also. When veterinary surgeon Mr. Herriot noticed that special towels were thrown through the window of the car in which Mr. Herriot was present, he drove away the car. He thought that it was loved a lot by each and every family member, so let us move from here, otherwise they will be throwing so many things for this dog. Finally, Mr. Herriot reached to the surgery center, and Mrs. Pumphrey was left lamenting. She started crying, weeping for the dog. At the surgery center, what happened? Other household dogs were there. They noticed this strange dog, Tricky, small dog. It was a kind of stranger for them, and they found it very uninteresting object. As it is written, you can find here. Treatment was started, and what was the special treatment? Nothing. It was not a very special kind of treatment. This dog was totally neglected by the narrator, not given any kind of food for 2 days continuously. Only it was given plenty of water. After that, after these 2 days, the dog got progress. It just shows some activity to the narrator Herriot, and no medicinal treatment was given to dog. All day it was left to run with other dogs. household dogs, different types of dogs were there. So it started running with it, and this was everything for this dog Tricky. Why? Because it was unfed, it was overfed, it was given tasty cakes, sweets, everything. That's why it had become unwell. So the treatment was appropriate. Treatment was very well. And now we find that the story, we proceed, we find that Mrs. Pumphrey, when Tricky was at the surgery center, Mrs. Pumphrey sent dozens of eggs for the dog Tricky. And when it was sent to the doctor, veterinary doctor, Mr. Harriet, he became very happy. Wow, what a wonderful treat I had. So he had not given a single egg to the dog. He ate all at the time of breakfast, at the time of lunch, at the time of dinner. He enjoyed a lot. After that, he noticed wine was also sent and brandy was sent for Tricky. But he just welcomed it wholeheartedly. And he wanted Tricky as a regular customer, but as he was also a human being, he was also a human being, he could easily understand that what was the feeling of Mrs. Pumphrey for this dog. That's why now when dog became very well, it started running with the other dogs. Now Mrs. Pumphrey was called. When Mrs. Pumphrey was called, Harriet informed Mrs. Pumphrey, now this dog is very well, this dog is okay, and now you can take this dog. You can take this dog. This dog is now okay. It started running with the other dogs. It had its appropriate exercises. It's all right. It's totally okay. Now there is no problem with the dog. Finally, so Mrs. Pumphrey just was in tears when she went to the surgery center of Mr. Harriet, and Mrs. Pumphrey received dog Tricky with teary eye, and everything became all right. So in this way the story ends. So what do we find in this story? Basically, that Tricky is the dog, small dog, who is loved a lot by one of the main characters of the story, Mrs. Pumphrey, who is the owner of the dog Tricky, and it was loved, it was overloved. That's why it had become like bloated sauces, as narrator had commented once, that it was like bloated sauces here you can find. And when narrator predicted that you are not giving any exercise to this dog, so this dog will be unwell, and his prediction just became absolutely right when dog stopped eating anything and it became very unwell. So now call was made to Mr. Harriet. Mr. Harriet received it, took it to the surgery center, and then a treatment was started, and no treatment was done at all. What was the treatment? Treatment was that it must join other dogs at the surgery center, and it joined there at the surgery center. And after that, what happened? When it started playing with the other dogs, it started fighting for the food with the other dogs, as other dogs were fighting for the food. So day by day it became very healthy. Earlier he was not given any food for the 2 days. It was given only plenty of water. And so this dog, who was unwell, Tricky was unwell. Tricky needed only exercises, as Mr. Harriet, veterinary surgeon, believed. So when Tricky was doing a lot of exercises in the form of running with the other dogs, it became really well. It became out of any disease. And this is the problem that it had. It had not its natural instinct. It had not a natural image of a dog. It had become so artificial. That's why it had all the problems. In this way, we find that at last Mrs. Pumphrey received this dog, and everything became very well, and she became extremely delighted. She was in tears, and with the teary eye, the story ends with a comic relief. Thank you.